Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's having a great Tuesday. I know it's kind of cold out there this morning. It's going to be kind of cold in the next couple of days, I guess. But I thought I'd jump on here real quick. I meant to do this last week. Things got kind of busy on me. I'm trying to get grades caught up, from all my classes. And it seems like everybody's doing really well with the dramas that we're reading over the last couple weeks. It looks like a lot of those videos that I've applied or supplied for y'all are helping. Um, which again, if you want, I can always put together a little bit more, lecture style videos over the plays, I guess. The problem is I don't want to overwhelm because I already gave you some videos there. I don't want to basically sort of say the same thing that they're sort of saying too in a lot of ways. So I don't want to do a lot of overlapping. But if you need any additional materials, if you need me to explain something a little bit more, I can always come back with a quick, maybe a lecture video over the plays. Um, or we can meet either via Teams, or if you're close in Camden, we can do something, in-person tutoring because I still have the office and tutoring hours. Um, but really, what I want to direct our attention to is the third essay that you're going to have to do, which is going to be the research paper. And it's going to deal with the drama section, which is basically the two plays that we're reading over, basically from week 11 until the end of the semester. Um, so I will flip over and we're going to look at some of the requirements here that deal with that. So give me just 1 second. I will share my screen and we will go with that. So you should be able to see this. This is basically the overview, the big picture of what are you doing basically. So the quick stats, paper needs to be between 1750 and 2,500 words, which is roughly about 7 to 10 pages in between there. If you double space, use Times New Roman and all that good stuff that you've been using for the last two essays. You really need to have 8 scholarly secondary sources plus the 2 primary sources, which would be the plays themselves. The 8 scholarly sources, I would probably suggest that you get 3 scholarly books, 3 scholarly journal articles, and 2 scholarly websites. And if you've been going through some of the lecture videos and some of the videos and stuff that I've been, throwing out there, uploading or sending via hyperlinks that deal with how to find sources at the college, you should be in a good position. And I really kind of hope that you have already um, taking that position to find some of these sources, already picked a topic because we really don't have a lot of time. This is sort of our schedule, right? Week 12, week 13, week 14, week 15. The actual research paper is due Thursday by 11:59 on December 4th. And then we have a final exam that following Monday, which would be Monday, December 8th, and that's going to be due by 11:59. The exam is going to cover some aspects of drama. It may involve the 2 dramas that we've covered over the last few weeks. It may be a couple passages from a drama that we didn't read in full, but you'll be able to answer the questions based on the reading of that particular drama. So we will talk a little bit more about that, but you really want to start gauging yourself because if you look, you really only have about a month, 4 weeks to get this research paper completed. So we'll talk a little bit more about the what you should have probably done each week momentarily. This is going to be worth 18% of your grade, so it is a good chunk of your grade. It's about a letter grade and a half. So you need to turn something in. Anything is better than a 0. If you get a 0 on this for any reason, right? You didn't submit it. You plagiarized the paper. You used AI on the paper. Whatever the case may be, the 0 would guarantee drop you probably at least 18 points, if not more, depending on where your grade is heading into December 4th. Again, we're using MLA 9, double space, times in Roman 12. Make sure that you do turn it in by 11:59 on December 4th. And you really want to think of this paper as your chance to be a literary detective, right? You're going to dig into two iconic plays that shocked society when they came out, and honestly, they're still relevant today. So, why these plays matter, right? The 1879 version of Espin's A Dollhouse. Nora literally walks out of her marriage at the end. Give you sort of a spoiler there. In the 1880s, this was shocking. Women didn't just leave, right? They didn't really have divorce. This play started conversations that are still happening into 2025, 2026, right? 1916, Trifles comes around with Gaspell, a murder mystery where women solve the crime while the men dismiss them, right? The irony is powerful. What men call trifles turn out to be the most important evidence, right? So, in a lot of ways, you're looking at this real talk down here. We have some takeaways. These aren't boring old plays. If you really get into the reading, I opened up Modular 13 that sort of shows the plays as, dramatized in film form or as play form, which is really how you want to um, visualize these plays and watch these plays. They're about power, control, identity, and breaking free. Themes you see in every movie, right? TV show and TikTok drama today, or Facebook drama, or Instagram drama. There's a lot of internet drama out there, and a lot of these themes still are play a big part of that. So I give you 6 topics to pick from, right? Masculinity and femininity. How did 19th century ideas about being a man or being a woman shape these plays? What was expected? Marriage and domestic violence. Both plays show marriage as a trap. Look at control, manipulation, and how women were stuck. Number 3, male-centric society and female relationships. When men control everything, how do women relate to each other? Competition, solidarity. Number 4 is metaphor, symbolism and metaphor. The birdcage, right? The dollhouse, the trifles. These objects mean something deeper about gender roles. Impact on feminist theory. How did these plays influence feminist movements? What waves of feminism reference them, right? And then 6, then versus now, compare 19th, 20th century reaction to how we view these plays today. What's changed? What hasn't changed? So, choosing strategy, right? Because there's only 6 topics here. Follow your curiosity. Which topic makes you go, ooh, I want to know more about that? Think about sources. Can you find 8 scholarly sources on your particular topic? Topic 5 and 6 may have tons of research. Topic 4 may require more digging, all right? You want to give yourself enough time to not only gather these sources from either your college library, your public library, or if you're dual enrollment, maybe your high school library, but you want to give yourself enough time that you can kind of read through them, take notes on them, and extract stuff that you want to use as direct quotations from those sources. Same thing with the 2 plays, right? You're going to need to be able to quote things directly. You're going to need to know how to do paraphrasing and summarizing. A lot of this stuff you should learn prior to this class, and especially you should have done a research type paper in 1101. So as it relates to sourcing and works cited page and a lot of this stuff, this shouldn't be new. Play to your strengths, right? Like history, go with topic 1 or 6. Do you like psychology? You may want to try topic 2 or 3. Do you love doing a close reading of a particular play or plays? You might want to do topic 4. So sources that you're going to need. Well, obviously the two primary sources, primary texts, the ones that you're required to read throughout, this month is Aspen's A Dollhouse and Gasville's Trifles. You're going to have to use those two. And you're going to need to use quotations from them. You may need to paraphrase, summarize, whatever the case may be. But every claim you make needs to point back to these plays with quotes and examples, right? And then the secondary scholarly sources you're going to need 8. So these are what other experts say about the plays. Think of them as your backup team. So you're going to need to find 3 scholarly books, 3 scholarly journal articles, which, as you can tell here, the books give you a deep analysis, historical context. The articles are going to give you focused arguments and recent scholarship, and then 2 scholarly credible websites, .edu, .gov, .org. Any university sites, government archives, or organizations should be reliable and credible there. Where to find some of your scholarly sources? Your library databases, public school, college, high school, Google Scholar. You have your public library if you want to try to find, the 3 books. And of course, if you're dual enrollment, you might be able to find journal articles and books at your particular high school library, depending on how big it is. What isn't scholarly? So you want to be careful here. Anything dealing with lit charts, Spark Notes, Cliff Notes, you can use them to understand, but you don't want to cite them in your paper. I don't want to see Spark Notes, Cliff Notes, Shoop, any of that stuff on your works cited page. The same goes with random blogs or Medium articles, X, Reddit, anything like that, Facebook. Wikipedia, though you can use their sources if the page is really well written, right? They always have a notes page or a reference page. You might be able to piggyback off to find scholarly journal articles or books, but you can't use the actual web page of Wikipedia. And anything that's AI generated content or essay mill sites where you're going to, try to buy an essay, right? Because you don't want to get flagged for plagiarism. Because your essay will go through a plagiarism checker, just like most of your other papers and stuff have. And we will be sending it through various AI generators, maybe multiple ones. So make sure that you're not relying on AI to write your research paper here, or the 0 will be your final grade. Building your argument. A lot of this stuff you learn from English 1101. Your thesis is everything. The thesis is your main argument, the claim you're proving in 7 to 10 pages. It should be specific. Not both plays show gender issues, but both plays use domestic spaces as prisons that trap women through economical dependence and social expectations. It needs to be arguable. Someone could disagree with you. That's what makes it interesting, right? Provable. You have evidence from the plays and the scholars to back it up. So I'll give you an example here of a difference between a weak thesis and a strong thesis statement. And you always want to avoid the weak thesis statement, obviously. And it says here a doll house and trifles are about women's problems. Well, we know that. So what? Anybody that's read those plays, watched those films, read any kind of Wikipedia or Cliff Note page will know that. That's not really being arguable. That's not proving anything. If we look at the strong thesis statement, while a dollhouse exposes the psychological manipulation within the Victorian marriage, Trifles demonstrates how male-dominated institutions systematically dismiss women's knowledge. Yet both plays ultimately reveal that women's liberation requires recognizing and valuing female perspectives. So as you can tell here, this is 1 sentence in length. Generally, a good, strong thesis statement needs to look like the example here, and it needs to be one sentence, complete sentence. Structure your paper, sort of give you like an outline. Think of it like a sandwich. You're going to need layers, obviously, because again, you need to at least have 7 pages, 7 to 10 pages. So you're going to have your introduction, hook plus context, plus thesis. This probably needs to be about 1 page. Uh, Body paragraphs. Each paragraph equals one main point that supports your thesis. So you're going to need to have topic sentence. You're going to need to have evidence from your plays, quotes, paraphrase, summaries, the same thing, evidence from your 8 scholarly sources. Again, direct quotes, summaries, paraphrasing. Your analysis connects it all, right? So this needs to be about 5 to 7 pages, the body paragraph. So you're going to have a lot of body paragraphs. You're probably going to have, to try to get at least 7 pages, I would say you're probably going to need at least 10 body paragraphs. And then if you include your introduction and your conclusion, that would probably be, anywhere 12 paragraphs plus should give you 7 plus pages at that point, depending on how long your sentences and how long your paragraphs are. Then your conclusion should be about 1 page, right? Mirroring the introduction about 1 page. That's where you're going to answer the so what, why does this matter type questions. And that's where you're going to go into the next page on a separate, right? You're not going to put the works cited page at the very end of your conclusion. You go to your next page and you put your works cited page. So if you end on page 7, page 8 is your works cited page. And I should see, if you're using 8 scholarly sources and the 2 plays, that's basically going to be 10 source entries on your works cited page. I should see 10 entries on the works cited page, and I should see that you use those throughout that 7 to 10 page paper throughout the body of your work. So you're not putting stuff on your works cited page that you never use in your paper. If you have more than 10 sources, obviously you're going to have to put it on your works cited page and expect that your paper is going to be a little bit longer, right? So if you use 15 sources, your paper is probably going to be close to the 9 to 10 page length, if not longer. So just be kind of careful of that. Pro tip, your body paragraph should bounce between the plays. Don't write 3 pages about a dollhouse, then 3 pages about trifles. Compare and contrast as you go. That could be kind of easier for you to go to do it this way, sort of bounce between both plays. Using sources, quotes, paraphrase, and cites. There's 3 ways that you can do this. I talk about this in previous lecture videos. Hopefully you've been watching those. You can, direct quotations, use when the exact words matter from the sources. Keep quotes short, between 1 or 3 lines usually. So as you can tell here, this particular writer blends in this particular quotation from Aspen's play. Notice how they are using a signal word or a phrase. Sometimes you may hear it as a verb, and then they have the word that. Notice there's no punctuation, meaning there's no colon, there's no comma. You just lead into that particular quotation. Make sure that you have the author's last name and the page number, or in this case, it would be probably the line, because we're quoting drama. I did put some information up there how to go about doing that. Look back at some previous modular folders to see how to quote drama, because it's different than quoting a short story or a novel, and it's different than like quoting poetry. Make sure the period is on the outside. If you do introduce the author leading into your quote, you just use the scene number and line numbers. Paraphrasing. Putting someone else's idea in your own words. It still needs, just like with summary, it still needs a in-text citation or a parenthetical citation at the end. So here they use, again, a signal phrase, according to feminist scholar Joan Templin, comma, we get into Aspen's play. So this is basically a paraphrasing of Joan's idea from her work on page 28. So I should be able to go, or anybody for that matter, should be able to go to the works cited page, look up Joan's name, look at that work that it's coming from. And in this case, we assume it's coming from a journal article or a book. We should be able to get it back to her original source, go to page 28 to see more about, where this summary is coming from, or this paraphrase in this case is coming from. Summarizing, condensing a longer idea into a brief overview. Again, since you're using it, you're using somebody else's ideas. Even though it is your own words, you still have to give credit back to the original source. In this case, Smith is not mentioned anywhere in this particular summary, so that's why we have to put it inside the parentheses here. And this is coming from pages 112 and 115, either from a book or, again, a journal article. Pay close attention. I know here it hasn't been done, but remember when you're quoting, when you're using the titles of the drama, both A Doll's House and, Trifles needs to be italicized. You don't put quotation marks around them. The titles of drama plays, you basically italicize them like you would a novel or a film. So sort of kind of keep that in mind. Integration is key. Don't just drop quotes randomly, right? We don't want to have drive-by quotes or orphan quotes, or you're just throwing stuff up there for the sake. Well, he told us that we needed quotations. Yes, you do, but you need to know how to do it correctly and effectively to make your paper shine. Set them up with signal phrases, right? As feminist scholar Bell Hook argues, right? This is a signal phrase or a signal verb. Literary critic Harold Bloom suggests, according to Tori Moe analysis in her groundbreaking study, Sandra Gilbert claims. Also notice that when you're doing a research paper with MLA, especially when you're dealing with literary works, everything remains in historical present tense, or what they call literary present tense, meaning characters never die, authors do. So a good bit of your paper needs to be in present tense because, again, the action is sort of still ongoing. It never sort of dies. Remember this sort of critical point. Every borrowed idea needs a citation. If you paraphrase or summarize without citing, that is still plagiarism. And it will, first time around, if you plagiarize, regardless however you do it, or if you use AI, regardless however you use it, the first offense is going to be a 0. So when in doubt, either ask librarian, ask me, ask another English teacher. If time runs out and you don't have time to ask anybody, cite it. MLA in-text citation quick guide that says author's name in the sentence. So when you have the author's name in the sentence, you're just going to list the page number if you're using like a secondary source, because there you're having books, journal articles, or a website. Again, look up how to cite websites, because websites don't have page numbers. If you're citing a drama, you're going to have to look up how to cite that. Again, I put some information about how to cite drama using the act, scene, and line numbers. If author is not in the sentence, then you're going to put, within those parentheses, the author's last name, and then you're going to give that indication whether you need a page number. If you're using some sort of a film or YouTube video, you're going to have to timestamp it. That's another way to show where you're getting the information at the exact hour, minute, and second type deal. If you need help with that, I can, help you with that. You're just going to have to reach out. Secondary sources, right? Again, you're still going to have to use last name and page number. If there is no author, which you're probably going to maybe run into this when you're dealing with websites, you're just going to shorten the title of that particular web article, put it in quotation marks, and then again, if it gives a page number, put a page number, but most websites won't. Let's talk about AI and plagiarism, right? You've probably heard of this at some point. probably prior to this course. Real talk, why AI papers get caught? Well, the biggest red flag with any type of AI paper, whether you pay for the program or whether you use a free version, they usually give you fake sources. They don't write in MLA format. Um, AI will conveniently cite books and articles that don't exist. So, meaning if I go to Google or any type of web search and type in the stuff that you have on your works cited page, and it doesn't come up from a library or Google Scholar or some kind of database, Amazon, Google Books, then that's a pretty big red flag that you probably used AI and it just plugged stuff in there for the sake of showing you how to do it, and the information that they gave you is bogus too. So your paper is not going to make sense if you have bogus sources, right? So when I see multiple papers with sources I can't verify over multiple courses from different students, I know immediately what happened, and it's going to be an automatic zero after I throw it through an AI checker just to prove my point. And I will give you all that information if you need it to. So don't go down that route. Save yourself a lot of heartache. Um, it will damage a good GPA because, again, a zero is going to bring you down about 20 points. So be careful of that. And some folks can't really afford to miss 20 points at this point, because let's say that you have a 80 in the class. Well, you get a zero on this thing, it's going to give you a 60. And most folks need to have a C or higher to pass. So if you get a D or lower, you're going to have to repeat this class before you graduate somewhere at some point at some time, right? Why you shouldn't use AI besides getting caught and getting that forever zero. You're paying for this education or somebody's paying for it. Why pay thousands of dollars to have a robot learn instead of you? Because again, at some point before you graduate, you're going to have to do another research paper, if not multiple ones. And if you're going for a 4-year degree or higher, you're definitely going to have to write longer research papers and more of them, depending on where you go. You won't learn the skill. Research papers aren't busy work. You know, a lot of folks think they are, but they're not. There is a skill for it. This is how you learn to think critically and argue effectively. You really probably need to do more type of research papers in middle school and high school to sort of prepare you for the type of research papers you get when you come your freshman and sophomore level years at college. AI is constantly wrong. It makes stuff up. Yes, it gives you those what we call in this field of work AI hallucinations. It gives you stuff that mimics or mirrors what you think should go into a particular passage or a paragraph or a paper. But unless you really read this, read the primary text, read the material, and then go back and check, you don't know what AI is thrown in there. Yeah, they can throw in a couple words about the dollhouse and about the authors and all this stuff. But unless you're really reading that 7 to 10 page paper and taking it apart, the first 2 or 3 pages could be great. But where it's going to start to come back to haunt you is toward the end or the middle of the paper when they're throwing a bunch of bogus stuff in there. And they may use different plays. They may quote different things. They may have stuff in there that's just bogus, right? Just gibberish. Doesn't make any sense. But they realize that, hey, this student's probably just going to copy and paste it into a Word document and just submit it 2 minutes before it's due, even though you had nearly 4 or 5 weeks to actually do the work yourself and get the help. But generally, students don't do that. So be careful. Because again, if you get caught, you're not going to have enough time. We're not going to redo it. You're not going to give me, all these excuses. Oh, I didn't have time. Yes, you did. You had since week 10, right? Because I opened a lot of this stuff up, especially as it related to the dramas and research paper, the week that you turned in essay 2 on poetry, which, by the way, I'm slowly getting all those graded. I hope to have most of those graded, if not by the end of the week, by the beginning of next week, because I know I have to go back and kind of read some of your discussion questions, which y'all are really doing great with some of these. And I appreciate that because it seems like you're really going through and learning the plays and that type of stuff. So it should help you since you're having a good understanding of both plays, um, when it comes to getting the research and writing this paper. Now, again, as it gets closer to December 4th, if you want to send me a draft of your research paper, I will look at it and give you constructive feedback. I just need to see it before it's due, right? So I would say, I mean, don't wait to December 3rd to send me something because it's due on the 4th. I would say December 1st by 6 o'clock would be the last time I can look at these research papers before you turn them in. Just because I got 5 other classes that are dealing various other research papers, I just don't have the time. If you wait until December 2nd or something to start submitting this stuff. So if you want me to look at it again, it's optional. I need to see it before 6 o'clock on the 1st of December. Of course, we have tutor.com. I would utilize them if you haven't exhausted your 10 hours there. But let me look at your papers if you need some help. Now, that's what I'm here to do. That's what I want to do is help you. But I can't read, I can't read minds. Your future jobs need this skill. Every professional field requires research, analysis, and clear writing. That is true. You may not be doing it on drama or short stories, but if you're going into a medical field or something of that nature, you're still going to need to do some analysis, some critical thinking, thinking on your feet, providing evidence to support sort of your point of view on things. What you can use, right? Grammarly, spell check, right? You want to catch the typos, that's fine. Library databases, finding real sources instead of letting AI give you fake ones, that's fine. Spark notes and other literary guides, understanding the plot, but you don't want to cite these, right? You just want to go through and kind of reread certain sections of a particular play without having to go back and take the time to really reread. That's fine, but you don't want to cite a Spark Notes or a Cliff Notes, right? Because again, just because they say the person that's writing these is Harvard or Yale graduate with an English degree doesn't mean that they truly are. And anyway, they're just giving their interpretation of that particular part of the play. So it's not really your interpretation of that play. Writing Center tutors, I mean, we do have in-person tutoring. We have Teams tutoring. You just have to, and then we have tutor.com. So utilize those sources. They're free. I also have some office hours. We can again do something, over the phone via Teams. If you live close to Camden, you can always come directly to my office. And again, we will look at, submitting your paper. Every time you submit a paper, it goes through a plagiarism checker called SafeAssign anyway. You probably see those percentages after you submit something. The closer to zero, the better your paper is of not being plagiarized. The closer to 100 is telling me that, hey, you might have plagiarized this particular paper. And then we use various AI checkers, which again, I would probably get in the habit of also using free online AI and plagiarism checkers before submitting papers to me, just so that you can see that, hey, this might be flagged heavily as plagiarism or AI. Let me change this before I submit it, before I get that zero, right? You don't want to have that happen. Because as it says here, the consequence of getting a zero, whether plagiarizing, whether using AI, whether buying a paper, using somebody else's paper, not turning in the paper, it will become a forever zero. Because again, we just don't have time to redo these things. December 4th, you've had, since the end of October to the beginning of December to get this stuff going. The forever zero on 18% of your grade, that will likely fail you from the course. So it's not worth it, right? You may be okay if you have a high A in the course, but I can tell you if you have a B or lower, getting a zero on this research paper, it's probably going to give you a D or an F. Guaranteed. This gives you some, smart research strategies, which if you read some of the stuff about the library, the slideshows I provided, any of the weekly videos that deal with, the guided library tour, I think there was a lecture video about that. Some of y'all did the extra credit pre and post test of the library orientation. That will help you. So I'm not going to necessarily go through this too much, but I'm really looking at, time management. And when I say week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, you really want to look at it in terms of what I have here. Week 12 would be like week 1, week 13 would be like week 2, week 14 would be like week 3, and then week 15 would be like week 4. So as it says here, choose your topic, find 4 sources, read plays. Uh, Next week, find remaining sources, take notes, outline your actual research paper. Third week, write your rough draft. Fourth week, basically when we come back from Thanksgiving, revise, polish, create work, cited page, proofread. Don't wait until the night before. A 7 to 10 page research paper needs time, not AI, not plagiarize, not buying a paper. Because again, at some point you will get caught, or the paper still will suffer a grade, even if you do sort of sneak through, right? Because a human's got to read these. So we will know if something sounds kind of, I'm going to know if something sounds different, if something looks off. So you want to be careful there. Um, you can use works cited generators to help you as it relates to creating your works cited page. So kind of keep that in mind. If you need help with that, just let me know. Make sure that your works cited page is alphabetically in order, ABC order by the author's last name. Um, Remember that you italicize book titles and play and film titles. You use quotation marks for articles, for like songs from poems. You need to double space everything throughout your paper. You need a hanging indent if your citation goes from the second line or beyond. You don't indent that first line of your citation. And you don't want to include sources you don't actually cite in your paper. That's another big red flag that somebody is trying to plagiarize or use AI on a particular paper. So, right, some things that you want to kind of keep in mind. The paper is worth your efforts, right? I know 7 to 10 pages sounds intimidating, but here's the thing. You pick a topic you're generally curious about, the pages will fill up faster than you think, especially if you give it time. These plays are rich with material. Again, time management's key. Every line has layers. Every symbol means something. You have plenty to write about, and you have enough time to write about it, right? Because if we look at today, today's the 11th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. You have nearly 23 days before the final draft is due. So you have time to gather all your sources, read all the plays, take all the notes, get everything ready that you want to, quote, paraphrase, summarize, make an outline, um, draft a paper, finalize the paper, make the works cited page. So if you can't get it done, within those 23 days, 24 days, whatever the case may be, then you didn't use your time wisely. And I will strongly suggest that you don't wait until December 1st or 2nd to try to do this. It probably won't end too well, especially if you got other classes, you got other commitments going on right after Thanksgiving, getting closer to Christmas. There's a lot going on. The other thing that I would suggest too, because the week of the 24th, right, is our Thanksgiving week. There's nothing really going to be due. I think there might be something due on the 23rd or the 24th, because technically the 24th, that Monday, is a official college day. But I think as we get closer to the end, I'm just having you, finalize this paper, get ready for the final exam. I'll probably talk about the final exam next week a little bit more in detail. But eventually, I think you're only going to have one more discussion, which is in the modular 13. That one is not due until the 23rd, I believe, because it deals with Aspen's A Dollhouse. It's a little bit lengthier. It's 3 acts. If you look inside modular 13, I just give you the plays to watch of both. So after this last discussion, we go right into, just having the research paper ready to turn in on the 4th, and then I will give you a final exam on the 8th. So we're starting to close the door or close the window on our semester here. So just sort of kind of keep that in mind. What makes an A paper? Clear, specific thesis that's actually arguable, strong evidence from both plays and scholars, your own analysis, not just summarizing what others say. Don't give me a bunch of plot summary. I know what both plays talk about. I've read them. I studied them. I teach them. So don't rehash. Well, in Act 1, this is what happens, and this in Act 2, I know that. That's just a waste of your time. It's a waste of my time to try to read and grade through that. I need analysis. I need literary analysis. I need scholarly, analysis going on. I don't need, your version of a Spark note. Smooth integration of sources, not just drop in, right? Proper MLA format. Some of y'all are still losing points because you're not formatting your essays correctly. Some of y'all lose about a letter grade when the format is not correct. So what could have been an A paper now becomes the highest you can make is a B, granted everything else is correct. Or what could have been a B paper, because you don't have the format correct, maybe a C paper. So kind of keep that in mind. Clear writing that's organized and flows well, demonstrates genuine engagement with the text. So resources available to you. You have me, office hours, in person or virtual tutoring hours. You have tutor.com, library, classmates, Voodoo Owl. You have a lot of different things that you can use. So again, this is 18% of your grade. Make it count. Do your own work. Start early. Ask for help when you need it. Because again, I can't read minds. So if you're not asking questions or getting help, then I'm assuming you know what you're doing. So again, remember the final draft deadline is December 4th at 11:59 p.m. Now, as it gets closer to December 4th, I will probably go ahead and open up that modular and that Dropbox so you can submit it in earlier if you want. But once the Dropbox closes, it's closed. No late papers will be accepted. Plan accordingly. Once you turn something in, generally that's it, unless you know that you seriously did something wrong. Because what I'm going to have to do, if you turn it in earlier, I'd have to go in and delete your submission so you'll be able to upload a newer submission. So just kind of keep in mind, whenever you turn in, if you turn it in earlier, that's the one that you really want me to grade. So don't email me at 11:58 p.m. on December 4th saying your internet died. Submit early if possible, right? Otherwise, again, you can send me drafts when you have a chance. I'm here to help you. I want to help you, but I don't know that you need help unless you ask for it. So with that in mind, I will end it there. I hope everybody has a good rest of your week. Enjoy the plays, enjoy watching A Doll's House and Trifles. And I look forward to finalizing all the poetry essays. I think I have about 9 or 8 left to do. Those were a little bit longer, obviously, than some of the discussion posts and quizzes and that type stuff. So bear with me. If you turn something in, you will get a grade. I will look at, I've been looking at some of the discussion posts. I've been putting, questions and comments and that type stuff. Just so I don't get bogged down, I usually try to comment and put questions up for those that, submit early before the deadline. After the deadline, I usually just sort of read for the content and make sure you're following, what the rubric states. And then I give you sort of just a brief blurb in the actual text box. Just because, I mean, if I tried to comment on everybody's discussion post, I would not get everything that I need to get done graded wise. So that's why I'm trying to be selective at this point because I know it's, we got less than 4 weeks. So I'm trying to get grades all caught up. So um, it won't take me, I hope, as long because I'm not going to have the luxury of taking 2 weeks to grade research papers. I'm going to have to just roll through those, probably a lot of pot of coffee, um, Red Bull, staying up late in the night to be able to meet my deadline. So that's why I sort of put that out there with those that email last week about, I really can't do any more late work. If we talked a little bit about late work early on and we agreed something there, that's fine. But, really starting, last week toward the end until the end of the semester, I just have to go by the course syllabus policy. And if you're late, you're just going to have to sort of eat that zero. So that's why I say make sure that you turn stuff in earlier because anything's better than a zero. Even if you made it 15, yes, it's still failing. It's not the best grade, but 15's points. Um, a zero, I mean, a 15 will drop you down, obviously, but it's not going to sting or hurt as much as if you have 2 or 3 zeros back to back. I mean, I can tell you right now, um, if you have probably 2 zeros heading into the next 4 weeks, it's probably going to fail you. Um, Generally, it's been my experience. Anybody that has three or more uh, within the last 30 days of the semester, they're down to about, an 18 or a 20 in the class. And there's just no way of coming back for that because one, I don't have the luxury or the time to open up stuff, especially if you're missing multiple assignments. Because they're going to want, final grades from all instructors like within 24 to 48 hours after the last final exam. So we just don't have time to be chasing uh, grown adults to find, turn in your stuff. You should have already turned it in. That's why, I mean, I give y'all a good bit of time, especially these bigger projects, to work on them, to get help, to turn stuff in. It's not like I'm asking you to do a 7-page research paper in 2 days. You've had nearly 5 weeks. So keep that in mind. Um, because a lot of times folks will come up with their excuses. Oh, I didn't have time. I couldn't find this. Well, you only had since Halloween to be working on this stuff. And, why did you wait a whole month to tell me you couldn't find anything on your topic? And you had nearly 25 days to get help. So a lot of that stuff I don't have much sympathy for just because I know how much time I gave y'all. And if you used your time wisely and got the help that you needed, we would have been able to resolve a lot of those issues way before the deadline. Anyways, again, I hope everybody has a good rest of your Tuesday throughout the week. Um, I will probably be back in touch with you before Thanksgiving because we need to talk a little bit about the final exam. All right, be good, and I will, see you soon.